my friends. Today we are going to get through the third battle report on this channel. This is a 1500 point battle between the 100 Kingdoms and the Nords. Now, this is my first attempt at a battle report in the coronavirus lockdown. Some concessions had to be made, and I had to compromise a little bit on how I was going to do this. So normally I like to do video. This is not a video battle report because I don't have anyone to hold a video camera for me while I play. Now I know in the second battle report I also had to hold the video camera and play the game, and that was because the player who was supposed to play the 100 Kingdoms had to leave a few minutes before the battle was supposed to start, so I had really no choice. I had to do that. That's not my preferred way of doing a report. I don't like to have to hold the camera while playing because it gets very swingy and I just don't like how it turns out. So this is a stop action battle report. This is going back to old school. So I used to do battle reports back in the day that were all written and photo based, and that's what this is. So if you like this type of battle report, let me know in the comments. The whole point of this battle report, just like any battle report, is not only to show you what happened in the game, but to generate conversation. So as long as the game is clear and you can see what's going on, I think it's succeeded. And if this does turn out well, then I might do this format more in the future. Because certainly from a video editing standpoint, this is an easier format for me to work with. All right, 100 Kingdoms versus Nords. So I chose to do the 100 Kingdoms versus Nords because I think these two factions align well against each other on the table. We put the two lists together, and here we have the tail of the tape. And I've mentioned before, I'm going to start having a lot more of the statistical analysis in my games as well, just to kind of, as a discussion point, and just to see how the lists bear out against each other. So these two armies, if you look at the output, are very close to each other. They're actually within 8% of each other, and an 8% difference is really, really good. I've done reports before for other games where you can get like a 20-30% disparity in the two army lists, and you can tell in the table when they play. So I think 8% is a pretty good difference. And the Nords actually come out on top here. Now, something to note though, in this game, and I'm talking this game of Conquest, these weight classes, light, medium, and heavy, play a huge role in how things happen. So just because you have a lot of output in your heavies does not necessarily mean that that's a good thing, because if the mission goes quick and your heavies don't get to do anything, those are wasted points. So that's something to keep in mind. And we're going to talk about this at the end of the report because this is going to come up there as well. But looking at the armies, the 100 Kingdoms have 4 units that are range based. 2 of those are militia bowmen. This is my first attempt at using them. So also, we have some unpainted models in this report. Again, it's one of those concessions that I was going to have to make. Normally, I don't like to have any unpainted models. This is actually the first time I've used unpainted models in a game, I think, ever. Normally, I don't ever do that. But again, for this situation we're in, I said, that's fine. We're just going to have some unpainted models. So you'll see that in the report. But we got 4 light units that are range-based. And then we have a block of men-at-arms that's 5 stands, and then a block of Steel Legion that's 5 stands, and then a unit of Household Knights. And they are going to take on a bunch of small units from the Nords. We have 2 units of Stalkers, 2 units of Raiders, 2 units of the Uger, and 2 Mountain Giants, Mountain Jotnars coming in. So it's like an MSU approach. We'll see how that turns out. Some intangibles and key points about this battle. The 100 Kingdoms in this game will have range superiority, so I will be able to reach out from a distance and do some damage. This will force the Nords to be more aggressive. Of course, the Nords should already be aggressive. That's how they play. I also have magic superiority. I have a priest this time. It's my first time using a priest, and my opponent has no way to stop that. So I'll have magic superiority. The longer the game goes, the more it favors me. The Nords have a very low defense, so they can't take protracted battles very well, so that's something to look for. Unfortunately, this scenario is also notorious for being really fast, which means that plays right into the Nords' hands. For the Nords, they've got the battlefield control. They've got the speedy units, and they've also got units with Vanguard, which means they're going to get a free move on top of that. So they're going to be jumping on the table from the get-go. The Jarl Supremacy ability will hinder all the mediums, hinder the mediums and keep the heavies off the table in turn 3. So how that works is in turn 2, he can use his Supremacy ability. His Supremacy ability happens after you've already got reinforcements. So when he uses it, it won't take effect until the next turn. But in turn 3, any mediums that haven't come onto the table are going to be a lot harder to come out, and any heavies are going to be impossible to come out, unless you have the flank keyword. And that was actually commented on today in the Discord as well by the developers, that is true, as the flank keyword bypasses the Jarl Supremacy ability, which makes sense because the Nords can give their guys flank. The Nords have to stay aggressive and push the lines at all times. Cannot afford to get into a protracted fight, which we talked about. Has to find a way to silence my priest because he has Holy Fire, which will give automatic hits and can do a lot of hits to defensive 1 units. So they're not going to have any real save. But the scenario definitely benefits the Nords. And here we have it, the Maelstrom Scenario. All right, so this is played on a 6x4 table, but I use the rules from Scenario 3. You have 3 objectives. You have 1 in the middle and 2 on the sides. The one in the middle is worth 1 point. Each one's on the side is worth 2 points. We're not using secondary objectives because the first side to score 8 points in this scenario wins. And as you can see, you can score 5 points in 1 turn. This mission is notoriously very, very fast. I'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the scenario, my thoughts on that type of scenario. So anyhow, obviously you're going to have a lot of pressure on these 2 outside components. It being 6x4 but not changing the distance of the objectives means everything is going to be still kind of in the middle, and that's fine. I like to play around a little bit with the mission objectives, but this is what we're playing. So here we go. We're going to be doing stop action. Let's see how this game unfolds. Okay, so here we have the table. The table was pretty sparse. We've got an impassable tree, got a little chunk of ruin there on the left, another impassable tree, and kind of like a water feature in the middle. The water feature is water, so it has all the rules for water, and also it is hindering terrain. The 3 objectives are also present. You can see the sarcophagus in the middle is the center objective, and the 2 objectives on either side are the 2-point objectives. So terrain will not play as big a role in this game as normal. All right, so starting off, we've got some light units getting ready to come on the table in turn 1. Turn 1 is usually going to be where all the light position or units start to maneuver and try to set up a battle line to get some reinforcements in or to get your flanking zones in. So the Stalkers are going to start the game off, and they've got Vanguard, which means they're moving 15 inches up. And in this case, they've also got the Jarl with them. So they're already threatening that left objective. The Militia Bowmen with the Theist Priest show up and do a double 10-inch move up. But it's looking like the Nords are going to grab some points next turn, and there's not going to be a whole lot that can be done. Second unit of Stalkers comes in, also with Vanguard, so the little battle line is forming up. 15-inch movement in compared to, a double move of 10 for the 100 Kingdoms. Crossbowmen and Imperial Officer arrive next. So we're trying to set up a ranged position here. The downside of this is going to be if these are ranged units, they need to get up into combat with light melee units. So I don't know how well that's going to work, or if we're going to try that. We'll see. Nord Raiders show up with the Blooded. They don't have Vanguard, so they're only going to do a 10-inch move. And you see they're aiming for the other 2-point objective. So real quick, turn 1. There we have what the table looks like. All right, turn 2. The Nords grab their last light unit, and they're going to get both their medium units on, which are the Ogre units. Then the Jarl will then pop his Supremacy ability, which will take in effect turn 3. So that's going to impact all of my reinforcements, basically, because she's got flank on what's left. Those 2 giants coming in have the flank ability. The stalkers with the jar will move up to the objective, so they're going to get ready to score that unless there's a way I can bump them off of it. 100 Kingdom side, they get the rest of their light units on the table in reinforcements, and they'll get one of their mediums. That medium was a unit of men-at-arms. I thought that would be more useful than the knights because I want something that can hold an objective. Officer goes first, and he grants Bastion to his crossbowmen. The Blooded and the Raiders on the right side do a double march to claim the objective over there. So at this point, they have the ability to score 4 of their 8 points, unless I can stop that. The crossbow unit moves up 5 inches. They're still at range, so they only get 6 shots, and they only manage 2 of those 6 shots, which actually is about right. They have volley 2, so 1 in 3 shots should hit, which it does. Kills 2 of the raiders, leaving 10. That's not going to be enough to actually do anything. And should the crossbows have moved up another 5 inches, they'd still be out of range of contesting that objective. But the 100 Kingdoms have decided to hold back and try to shoot them off the objective. Over on the right, the 3 Ogre show up. Now we're using Spire's Brutes to proxy these in. Normally I'm not really a big giant fan of proxies, but these guys are on pre-order, so they are technically out there, and I didn't think a Nord game without these guys would be very much fun to show, because I think the Nords really need this medium unit to help contest objectives. So anyhow, those are proxies today. Same base size, about same model size, but they're going to put some pressure on that right flank now. Second unit of 100 Kingdoms crossbows goes next. They move on to the table in the center. The center stalker unit will move up, and they will open fire at the crossbows with the officer in it, and they end up dropping 3 of those. So that leaves 9. Next, the militia will move up, and they're going to fire at the stalkers. The militia bowmen managed to kill 3 of the stalkers. Now they only have volley 1, so you're not really expecting much out of them, but the thing is with the Nords, they're all defense 1, so any hits you do get are likely going to kill them. The Jarl goes next, but he doesn't have anything to do, so that's just a kind of a waste to draw. And then on the right side, another unit of militia bowmen will come in, and they'll start firing at the raiders, but all of their shots miss. So the strategy here is to try to concentrate fire on these light units and try to knock them off the objective, which would also kill the characters. Second unit of raiders comes onto the battle in the back, so reinforcements for the Nords. And the 100 Kingdoms men-at-arms come onto the table over there on the left. So they are going to try to control the left side of the table. For the Nords, the second unit of Ogre arrive, and they're on the left side. So she's created a balanced mirror basically on either side of the table, almost. So she's got the 2 Ogre units, she's got the 2 Stalkers grouped together, and the 2 Raiders grouped together. The Theist Priest goes next and demonstrates magic superiority by setting fire to the Stalkers. Now, he is not... This comes up a lot, and especially if you're kind of new, so I'm bringing this up. Volleys in this game do not cause resolve checks. Magic is not a volley. It's ranged, but it's not a volley, and that's the key word you got to look at, because people will ask that a lot. Well, you used magic at range to cause damage to me, so I shouldn't have to make resolve rolls. No. Volleys, you don't have to make resolve rolls, and those are anything that use a volley score. Magic, you do. So the Theist Priest sets holy fire to the Stalkers and kills 3 and makes 2 more run from resolve. So now you can see there's just 4 left. And this is actually a bad roll. Out of 5 attempts, basically what the fire does is on a 3 or less, a 50-50 chance, every success is 2 hits. Well, I had 2 out of 5 successes. So that unit could have been totally destroyed and denied any points, which was my goal. But in that case, the dice kind of said no, and there's still going to be a medium unit that can contest that objective. So end of turn 2. There's what the table looks like now. You see the Nords are in a great position. They have, with their 2 medium characters, scored 4 points. They're already halfway to winning. This is a very fast scenario. All right, turn 3. 100 Kingdoms have to step things up, or else it doesn't matter what they've done position-wise. They're not going to go anywhere. They're going to lose because they can't score any points. So the Jarl Supremacy ability in this case hindered both the Knights coming in and Steel Legion. It was impossible. I couldn't even roll for them. But there was a misplay here, and that misplay was she did not bring her jotnars in. They should have come in because they had flank. They are not affected by Steel Legion at all, or excuse me, they're not affected by that supremacy ability. And with flank, they can choose to come in when they want. And you want those jotnars to come in on turn 3. And how they get flank is they're taken with the blooded. So if the blooded grants all his units the flank ability. So it's a nice little synergy bonus, but she forgot to do that. I'm just pointing that out because had those giants also come out on this table, that would have, you'll see it. If you're a Nord player, this is probably the most common supremacy ability you're going to see because you can get great board position before your opponent. All right, so the Stalkers start off by shooting at the Militia Bowmen with the Priest. That's a pretty high value target because if you can kill all the Bowmen, you can get rid of the Priest. So they end up dropping 5. So you can see we're down to a little over, or about 2 stands. One's missing from one of the stands. Imperial Officer Bastions. I typically like to do that first in the early part of the game just to give those crossbowmen a defensive 2. My officer hangs out with the crossbows for a while until he jumps into a different unit. In this case, I don't really have a unit to jump into that I care about at the moment, so he's going to continue to support these crossbowmen. Over on the left flank, the Ogres move in, and now they are able to contest the objective as well with one of the models. So when we did the measurement, the closest Ogre model could contest. The Militia Bowmen open fire and destroy the remaining Stalkers, which gets rid of the Jarl. So one of the disadvantages of running MSU like this, and when I say MSU, I'm talking about multiple small units. It's a term that's been used forever, for years and years in the wargaming community, and it means you have a lot of small units. The disadvantage of the little small units is that they're easier to destroy, and in a game like this where your characters are destroyed with their units, it leaves your characters more vulnerable. It's not like other games where you have to actually kill the character as well and he's running around by himself. So disadvantage of MSU is that you just lost a character. Advantage is you get more cards on the table, which means you have the ability to react a little bit better because you have more activations. Anyhow, so the Militia Bowmen destroy what's left of the Stalkers. So the Militia Bowmen are doing pretty good in this game, especially for their costs. And if you paid attention to any of my statistical videos, you notice that the Militia Bowmen are one of the best efficient units in the game. They don't have awesome stats, but for what you're paying for and what they're capable of, they are pretty good. The Raiders up at the top of the slide, you'll see them. They're moving up behind the Blooded Raiders, so they've got a reinforcement going on there. The officer, he is going to open fire at the Blooded Raiders again. I'm trying to again get rid of that character. Some more bad rolls happen. I have 1 of 9 hitting. If I was playing a game where high rolls mattered, I would have been doing awesome in this game because I rolled lots and lots of 5s and 6s, just not when I needed to roll lots of 1s and 2s. So 9 Raiders are left. They still have a really strong position there. If you notice, I've got no melee units near there, and all of those units you're looking at are melee units. The rightmost Ogre move forward, and they're also going to help contest that objective now. So they've doubled up on that objective, and it's going to be really hard for me to pry them off of it. Over on the left, the Theist Priest is going to seek a new escort with the men-at-arms unit behind him because he realized that those Militia Bowmen are about to probably die. And I like my Priest because of what he can do. So the rules for seeking new escort: when a character's card is drawn, he can do one of 3 things. Number 1, he can duel. Well, I have no one to duel. I'm not in contact with anyone. Number 2, he can cast a spell. And I could have done that, but I think number 3 was better in this case, which was seek new escort. This is just to move me out into a new unit. to move into a new unit, two things have to happen. Number one, the unit has to be within double my march value, which they are. I have a 5-inch march, so the priest has a 10-inch move that he can do to get out of a unit. And number two, the unit that he's moving into cannot have already activated. So the men-at-arms have not activated yet. So the Theist priest is now in a safer unit. It'll take a little bit more effort to remove the men-at-arms and thus remove my priest. The blooded goes next. He can't do anything, so then it takes the men-at-arms. I double move the men-at-arms forward, and at this point I've got 2 medium stands on that objective to the 1 Uger, so that means I should be grabbing those points. Another thing to note, if you're new here, you can move through your own units. You cannot move through them if they're in combat. If at the end of your movement you are touching an opponent, your side, your move doesn't happen and you're both broken. So you have to be careful with that. But in this case, I had plenty of movement to get through the bowman and grab that objective. The stalker card's drawn next for her. They're already dead. I killed them, so that's a wasted draw for her. So my turn again. The militia, I'll move the bowman up on the right flank to be near the crossbowman. I'm going to lose that objective, though. I can't do anything about it, and I've got nothing that can really be thrown up there to grab it. Those ogres are pretty nasty, and militia bowmen and crossbowmen are not going to cut it in combat. Next Nord draw is the Jarl. He's dead, so again, that's 2 more activations that she didn't get. For me, the crossbowmen at the bottom are going to open fire on the stalkers in the center. I take out an entire stand with those. Remember, range superiority was an advantage of the 100 Kingdoms. Just that in this case, with how fast this scenario is, I don't think that the range superiority is going to help very much. Well, it's helping, but it's not getting them. It's not getting these Nord units off the objectives fast enough. Over there, the Raiders reform to allow the blooded to slide down the line. So if you're looking at the picture, what you need to notice, that front unit of Raiders with the unpainted blooded, you notice the blooded is now moved over to the left. What she's trying to do is she's trying to get that, because he's a medium stand, to get him close enough to the center objective to also grab a point. Now, he used to be on the rightmost portion of the line there. To move your character around, you have to do a reform. To do a reform, the center of the unit cannot move. So that unit cannot move at all in terms of its center, and any stand moving can't move more than their march distance. So he's got a march of 5, so he basically was able to move 2 slots down and trade places. He's still not close enough to the objective, but on her second march activation, they begin doing a sideways movement towards the sarcophagus. So they're getting a little bit closer to the sarcophagus, but they're not going to grab that point yet. At the end of turn 3, the Nords are going to grab 2 points to the 100 Kingdoms 2 points. So right now you can see the score is 6-2. And the Nords they continue to be in a great position because now they only need 2 points to win. They've got that right objective pretty much. They're holding it with the ogres, and the 100 Kingdoms have nothing but light units to try to grab that. And the problem is there's only 1 medium stand over there, and that's the Imperial Officer. And there are 3 Uger stands that need to be taken care of. So we're going to move on to turn 4 now, where the Nords can win the game. All right. So Steel Legion and the Knights make their reinforcement roll, so that's great. Again, misplay. The Giants were rolling. They don't need to roll. They had flank. They could just choose to come in. This was forgotten. That happens during a game. So both those Giants should be on the table right now. And keep that in mind when you're looking at the positioning on the table. There should be 2 extra Giants, which makes another world of difference. So the 100 Kingdoms should be in a lot worse of a position than they are. The Nords once again won the initiative. I had the men-at-arms at the top of my stack to try to charge the Uger. Well, the Uger, they won, and that was her same play in mind, and they charged the men-at-arms instead. This is one of the things I love about Conquest. You have to set up your deck correctly. You don't just get to take your entire turn and have a God's eye view of the whole battlefield and know what's going to happen because you can do your whole army. You have to guess what your opponent's going to do and also try to guess what is the best sequence of actions for yourself. which adds a level of strategy to this game that is not present in almost any other fantasy miniature war game out right now. This is one reason why I really love Conquest. Anyhow, enough of that commercial. The Ogre charge into the men-at-arms, and they kill 6 after the impact and clash, running another one off, remove 7 models in total, leaving 13. Why is that important? Well, other than they killed models, the Nords have to be aggressive at all times. If you just sit back and let me charge, you're going to lose impact hits. So they got their impact hits in. Ogre do pretty good damage, and also what that did is prevented me from using my seasoned veterans Bastion draw event to grant an extra point of defense. So that my men-at-arms were defense 3 instead of defense 4. Now I took 5 stands. For that reason, I want to hold objectives and I need to be able to take casualties. So when I'm running mainline units, I'm going to probably run them in 5 or 6 stands total. Any of my infantry units. And most of my missile units I'll probably keep in 3 stands. And that's just my own personal preference, at least for the 100 Kingdoms. All right, so the men-at-arms went next. They return the favor. They do 7 wounds back, and the remaining Ogre that was left, there was 5 wounds left, so there was actually 2 Ogre left. They failed 5 of their resolve rolls, so they were gone. But now that men-at-arms unit had a big chunk tore out of it. The Stalkers on the next phase are going to charge in. This was actually, she deliberated on this one for a little bit. Her initial move was to try to move the Stalkers over to try to contest the objective, but she wouldn't have made it. She wasn't going to get the range, and so then we kind of talked about it. I was like, well, to me, you want to charge. You want to try to take out as many of those men-at-arms as you can, because they're not going to be able to return the favor this turn. And if you can get lucky and try to wipe what's left of those out and get all of them off the table with the priest, and that would be a great win. And if I'm a Nord player again, I'm just going to be aggressive, and she listened to that one and agreed. Maybe you might have disagreed. Let me know in the comments section. But they come in. They rolled pretty bad, though, and they only killed 2 and ran off 1 more. So that leaves 10 men-at-arms you can see in the picture. 2 stands and then a half of a stand. The Theist Priest goes next. He was going to do this regardless if they charged or if they shimmied over to try to contest. He sets fire to the Nords. He kills 3 and runs another one off. Again, really bad dice rolls. Only hit 2 out of the 5. Could have done a lot worse, but there's only 4 left. Theist Priest, not having any opponent to stop him from using that prayer makes a big difference. Because that, I think against Nords especially, is huge. Because these are hits, and they only have defense 1. The Raiders with the blooded shimmy over to the objective, and they claim the middle now. So at this point, they have 2 objectives, and they're going to win this game. Unless I can find a way to stop them. The officer will pop his bastion on the crossbows. This leaves the Ogre. They're going to reform to 3 stands wide and sit on that objective. So they're going to play it safe and hold. They're not really afraid of what's over there. The crossbows at the rear will fire out the Raiders in the center. And they'll actually get a nice set of dice rolls this time. 5 of 6 will hit, killing 5. You can see there's only 4 Raiders up there. But again, blood is still there to contest. And he's going to grab that point. Another point to note is that these combat heroes haven't actually gotten into combat. They haven't needed to be into combat. They're playing the objectives and scoring the points. The Nord draws blooded. He can't do anything. So next, my knights come in off the flank. They're too far away. Of course, we're on a 6-foot table. So being on a 6-foot table, those objectives are farther away. I can't get to it. And I have a great flanking position right now on those Ogre, but that's not going to matter, because if I can't contest that objective, I'm going to lose, because she only needs 2 more points. So the crossbows are getting ready to try to move forward to try to charge the Ogre in a desperation roll, but her Raiders go next and they move forward and block me. And at that point, there's really nothing else I can do. I cannot grab that objective. So the crossbows move forward and they hack through 5 Raiders, and then 4 more run off, and there's just 3 there. But you know what? The Raiders served their purpose. They blocked the charge of the crossbows. Not that I think that the crossbows would have done much to those Ogre anyway, but the Raiders served their purpose and stopped me from being able to get over there and do any damage. Mountain Jotnar comes in to threaten the knights on his turn from the flank. That's nasty. It's unneeded in this case, but it's nasty. The militia bowmen are going to fire on the Uber to try to start whittling them down. They manage to actually do 4 wounds and drop 1. Again, volley 1, well, you aim with them, get them volley 2, get a good set of dice, and on a low defense unit, you can do some amazing things with a very cheap militia bowman. Another militia bowman unit, excuse me, on the very far left, they go ahead and they take a march action to angle towards the center, and then they open fire with their volley 1. They actually drop another raider, so there's only 3 left. And the Steel Legion come onto the battlefield finally. But that's a little too late. At the end of turn 4, the Nords are going to get 3 points to the 100 Kingdoms 2 points, and the end of the game will be 9-4. We did actually play this whole game out past this, so the giant does come in and totally wipe out the knights, but this game went to 7 turns, and the 100 Kingdoms ended up killing all of the Nords. But in this case, for the scenario's purposes, the Nords win 9-4, turn 4. All right, so let's look at some post-game thoughts. All right, so this was a 4-turn game, ended 9-4 in favor of the Nords. Not every game is going to be a masterful positioning, left and right, got it, go down to the wire. Some games are quick, like this one, and why they're worth posting is because there's a lot of information you can take away from what happened to learn from my mistakes in this case. So this is my second defeat out of the 3 battle reports I've done, and I've learned quite a bit from the game, from playing, and some things to take away. 100 Kingdoms. Light units are not built for melee, and we're unable to get the early points. So I took a lot of 2 units of crossbows, 2 units of militia bowmen. They are not able to stand up to light melee units, and because of this scenario, I had to get them up onto those lines, and I didn't, which is the second point. I chose to hold back and shoot them off the objective instead of trying to get up there and contest the objective. I was playing conservatively. That's a play style I have. I don't like to throw my guys up and watch them die, but that cost me in this game because the Nords were able to score easy points in the beginning, and at that point they didn't even need to do much in the later part of the other 2 turns. For the Nords, some things to take away from them. They didn't take a shaman. Now the shaman's is on pre-order. I'm not really super impressed with his abilities from a spell perspective. Maybe one of them's like kind of okay, but the shaman I don't think is there for his spells. He is there for his counter spells. He is there to try to disrupt enemy casters. So not all casters need to be super useful in their spells. Just the presence of them being able to stop the opponent from casting spells can be huge. For a Nord, yeah, defense 1 across the board, spells are going to hurt you, especially the Dwegum, who can have Flame Wall rip across your army and do it twice from 1 character. You have to have something out there to dispel that. Their fast units covered the table quickly to score early points that cannot be recovered by the 100 Kingdoms. Cannot emphasize that enough. The Nords playstyle is move across the table as fast as you can, and they have rules to help them with that. The Jarl Supremacy ability kept my Knights and the Steel Legion away for an entire turn, securing an easier win. That would have been double so if you had remembered to bring those Jotnars out as well. And that could have hurt them. In this case, it didn't. But again, think about the table with 2 giants also roaming around. I had nothing to counter that. It would have been a lot worse, I think. Some mission takeaways. My thoughts on the mission. This is a very, very fast mission, and this mission specifically makes heavy units worth very little because the heavy units aren't going to come in and do anything. So I have goods and bads on that, and I'm going to be kind of all over the board with the points here real quick. I posted the points just to help direct my thoughts, so I'm not going to go in their order. I'll talk about the critiques first and then wrap up with the positives because I like to end on a positive note. I think that this mission goes a little too fast. When you only have an 8-point, whoever gets to 8 points wins, and you have 5 points that you can get on the table in 1 turn, not even counting secondary objectives. If you throw secondary objectives into the mix, you could win technically in 1 turn. I think that's too fast. I think something needs to be tweaked. I like the scenario overall, but I think it needs tweaked. You can either boost the points that are required, so I said 10 to 12 points to try it, and that might give you an extra turn, or make all those objectives only worth a single point instead of giving you 2 points for each of the side objectives. That would help, in my opinion. So that being said, that's my critique. I think it went a little too fast. I know the design goal of this game is fast games, and I agree with that. No one wants to sit around for 4 to 6 hours playing a game. Those days ended 20 years ago. People like fast games, but too fast games, you kind of leave feeling a little like, there was still some positioning, there was still some awesome things on the table that couldn't play out because it ended. Now, what I will say is that mission makes heavy units relatively worth little. This is not a critique. That is actually a positive note. Here's the thing. If you are rolling random scenarios in your group or in an event, and you don't know what scenario you're going to roll, it is important for scenarios to be different, to have different win conditions. I have said this for like 20 years. If a game, all the game scenarios are about one certain thing, people are always going to build the same type of list. In certain games, if killing a certain model wins you the game, people are just going to build their list to kill that certain model. The other victory conditions don't matter because it's easier just to kill that model. Or if in a certain game, it's easier just to, you win by kill points, you're going to always build an elite force that can win kill points. If your scenarios are always geared towards taking objectives, you're going to build armies that can take objectives. All of the scenarios should not be about the same thing. And in Conquest, they're not, which is one of the reasons why I love the game so much. Because it's fine. This is a design paradigm that I have wanted and I have used in my own events for years and years. But it's you get if it's not official and you're doing house rules in your events or you're making custom scenarios, you're going to take a lot of flack from people because they don't want house rules. They want official rules. And the official game right now, and developers, I hope you're listening to this. This is positive. Please keep doing this. If all of the scenarios are about different win conditions, you cannot build the one list to win them all. There is no, you should always do this, because you can't always do this. Because if you always do that one thing and you roll a scenario that's going to take away from you, you're going to be hurt and you're not going to be able to win that. So the scenarios themselves enforce balance. Think about that. It's not just about points. It's not just about how efficient units are. The scenarios themselves enforce the balance. The weight classes of the units help enforce the balance. Heavy units are awesome because they do lots of damage. But in some scenarios, you're not going to have time to bring them out. So what's that do? If I'm rolling random scenarios, and each scenario is about different things, and there's a scenario in the mix that makes my heavy units not very powerful because they don't come on the table until the end, and I have decided I like to just, I'm trying to stack for kill points and take a ton of Steel Legion, I've just shot myself in the foot. In this case, the second thing, this is a scenario that enforces aggressive play from both players, not just one player. You have to be aggressive to grab that center line, which means that in my case, if I build a lot of range units like I did, I have shot myself in the foot because I don't have light units that can get up there to contest those objectives right away. I have to think about all of the scenarios that can appear and build accordingly. I have to build a balanced list that can handle all of those scenarios. And that is a super huge positive for this game, in my opinion. Maybe you disagree. Leave your comments in the comment section below. I would love to hear about them. All right, guys, that is a battle report, stop action style, a little bit different than what I'm used to. I hope you liked it. I hope it was informative. Until next time, get some games in. I'd love to see what you guys are coming up with. I like watching all the painted units that are coming across. I think that the community is growing very well, and it's a very exciting time to be a part of a new game that's growing, even in the coronavirus era, where unfortunately we're stuck at home. Until then, till next time, have an epic day.